Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. I'm your host, James Ferrigno. Join me while we explore the truths most people never hear. I'm James Ferrigno, and welcome to What Nobody Tells You. This week on What Nobody Tells You, we're going to be talking about forgiveness. There seems to be a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about this word and the act of forgiveness and what it really is. We're going to talk about what that really means and what it entails. So let's start off by looking at what people normally think of as forgiveness. So when someone says, I forgive you, like, what does that mean? And if you are thinking yourself, should I forgive this person or not? What are you thinking about? Normally what people mean when they say forgiveness is that someone has wronged them and they're going to give them absolution. They're going to give them clemency in some way, give them a free pass. And that's not really what forgiveness is. So what forgiveness actually is it's a process by which you heal. It's a process by which you internally learn to accept what has happened and accept yourself. So what's actually happening is when you forgive someone else, you are not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. So many of us believe that when we forgive someone else, we're giving a gift to them, that we're doing it for them, when we're actually doing it for ourselves, if we're doing it properly. If we're not really processing it and then we just say, I forgive you to someone and we don't really mean it, then that's kind of an empty gesture and that's not really forgiveness of either kind. So forgiveness isn't a free pass for the other person, because if you think about it, what the person who supposedly wronged you, like, so somebody, I don't know, smashed your car and now your car is gone. So what good does it do for them to forgive them, right? That's just you saying the thing. Just you saying, I mean, I guess if they're afraid of retribution from you, you would be saying that you're not going to come after them in some way. So, but emotionally and internally, what it really means is that you are able to go through the process of accepting what has happened. And when you forgive them, you're doing that for yourself. Because what happens is when we believe that someone else has wronged us, we put ourselves, drama plays out and we put ourselves in the position of victim. So until we forgive that other person, we're treating ourselves as a victim. So now there's an ongoing thing, right? So even if that person, physically abused us, that only lasted for the time it took to heal physically from that. But the trauma afterwards, takes several different forms. But one of them is that we're victimizing ourselves. And then we live as a victim. We think of ourselves as a victim, which is a dramatic stance. And victimization is something we do to ourselves. And if we continue to live that way, then we're living in this field of drama and we're living in a place where we're believing that we are powerless, right? Or we're believing that these things can happen, bad things are going to happen to us and that other people can do things to us. So we're disempowering ourselves. We're getting rid of our own power. And it wasn't the person that hit us or took our car or whatever they did that is taking away our power. We're doing it ourselves. We're completely disempowering ourselves until we forgive that person. So the process of forgiveness is the process of looking at the situation, looking inside ourselves, and looking at our emotional state, looking how we feel, and realizing that we're putting ourselves in victim mode. And once we can be aware of that and notice that we're doing that, because most of us are going to do that, right? We're going to put ourselves in victim mode. I mean, not always, not everyone, but in general. And then our life is really not going to be fulfilling in what it could be as long as we're in that victim mode. And so the forgiveness process is helping us get out of that victim mode. And of course, there can be other trauma and other things we have to heal. So we can have buried resentment and anger and fear and all kinds of other emotions that we haven't processed yet. So we need to go through processing all those different emotions, accepting them, feeling them, mostly feeling them, maybe going through a releasing process, maybe sharing it with somebody. So expressing it so we can express it, feel it, release it, and do that with all those emotions. But at the same time, we need to go through the process of forgiving the other person, which means seeing that we're put ourselves in victim mode and that we've disempowered ourselves and made our life much more limited and much more painful than it has to be. So this frees us up, this understanding, just the understanding that it's for us and that we need to go through this healing process. Because if we say the person did something so bad, we can't forgive them, right? They, whatever, killed somebody, whatever it is they did. But if we don't forgive them, we're not hurting them, we're just hurting ourselves. And we're saying you won't forgive someone is essentially saying I'm going to disempower myself, weaken myself, and give myself a worse life. I mean, that's all that is. There's no real impact on the other person that we're supposedly not forgiving, because we feel like we have to do something to punish them, and so we won't forgive them. But really, the way to think about it is it's not them they're forgiving, it's more ourselves. It's a process for us. It doesn't really have anything to do with them. They don't have to be around. We don't have to see them. They don't even have to be alive for us to go through the process. And it's really, it's not about them at all. They're irrelevant. So it's an internal process that we're doing ourselves, by ourselves, a therapeutic process. And it doesn't have anything to do with that other person. So the danger, I think, in a lot of the belief systems out there and a lot of the ways that a lot of us look at it is that we're transferring our own issues onto someone else and then wanting to punish them and not forgive them because they did something bad, when all we're doing is denying ourselves. We're punishing ourselves. We're not punishing them. It isn't having effect on them. So we're just punishing ourselves and refusing to go through the natural, normal healing process. So that is obviously not beneficial for us, and it will limit the scope of our life and make our life much more painful and much more unpleasant to live. So if we want to have a more pleasant life, if we want to thrive and grow and be happy, we need to forgive everyone. And a good process to go through is look at everyone in your life that maybe you haven't forgiven for something and go back and forgive them. Because again, you're really forgiving yourself. And sometimes that's actually literally true. Often, actually, we blame ourselves for what happened. We might not do it on the surface, so we're not thinking of it. We're not necessarily marching around, it's my fault, I shouldn't have done that. But that is often underneath there. Once we start exploring and looking at our feelings and looking at what we're doing, that will rise to the surface a lot, that we end up blaming ourselves. And that's pretty common. So in that case, we actually are blaming ourselves. So, and we won't uncover that until we start doing the work on it. And also, not forgiving someone is a way of avoiding the work, of avoiding helping ourselves, of avoiding doing what's best for ourselves and looking at that. Because sometimes we're afraid to, often we're afraid to look at what's going on inside ourselves. And we may not do it very often. And it may be a strange, scary process for us. And so we'd rather try to blame someone else and have keep the focus on the outside of us so we don't have to focus inside. But in the end, I mean, we can go through the rest of our lives being miserable, or we can focus on the inside of ourselves and look at what's going on with us and go through the healing process. So, and really, these are the only choices there are. You can either make yourself miserable or not. And going through that healing process, so empowering, and taking back that power really can transform your life. It can really turn you into a much more powerful, successful person, and be amazed at how better your life can get when you let go of uh, the attachment that you might have to other people by not forgiving them. When you don't forgive them, you keep them with you all the time. And it's just this constant cycle. Even when you're not thinking about it, it's still under there. And even if you're not feeling it at that moment, there's this underneath the surface is bubbling this anger and resentment for them, for yourselves. And it can make you more quick to have anxiety or anger outbursts. And these can happen a lot more easily and frequently when you have people you haven't forgiven and you're basically just carrying that crap around with you all the time. So if we want to heal, if we want a good life, if we want to be happy, if we want to be more powerful, more successful, more confident, have a better social life, better relationships, then this is an area that we really might want to look at. And if we have the belief that forgiveness is for the other person, we might want to look at that belief and see if it's doing anything good for us or if it's harming us. And that can be something that can be really beneficial to explore. And this is all closely related to the blame game. So a lot of us play the blame game, which is if something happens that we don't like, we blame someone else for it. And this can be on any level. It can be personal, that someone has wronged you, and now, in addition to not forgiving them, you're also blaming them for doing it. Those usually go hand in hand. And sometimes maybe we don't think about the forgiveness aspect, but we do just blame the other person. And this can happen in our relationships well, it does in almost every relationship, with our partner, with our, wife or husband, our loved ones, our family members, our friends, that they've done something and we blame them for it. And you're blaming when you tell the person what they should or shouldn't have done instead. So whenever you should on someone, including yourself, you know that you're blaming them. You shouldn't have left the door open, then the raccoons wouldn't have got in. You shouldn't have, you know, done whatever, You shouldn't have flushed the toilet. You knew it was broken. You shouldn't have driven the car, or you should have put gas in, or you should have remembered to pay the bill, or you shouldn't have said that to me, or you shouldn't have been mean to that waiter. Whatever it is, once you're saying should and shouldn't to somebody, you're blaming them. Now, when you blame people, when you're placing fault, you're saying it's their fault what happened. And the truth of the matter is, at the most basic level, which is also the most expansive, objective level, things happen, and every person is always doing the best they can. So if you ever say to someone, you should have done better, you can do better than that, that's never true. It's never been true. It never will be true. No one can do better because they've already done their best, because there is nothing but best. Every single person, every single day, every single moment, every single time is always doing their best. And I know some clients can have difficulties wrapping their head around this concept. Wait, but this person did something so bad, it's their fault, So if you think about it, we have a central nervous system, we have a spirit, right? And we make choices and we make decisions, and we wouldn't make those choices if we didn't think they were the best. And what's best to us might not be best for the human race or other people, but we have some reason that believing it's best, right? So if we do something, kill somebody for money, or whatever people do, they do it because they believe that it's the best thing to do. Doesn't mean it's good, but they're still doing their best, because if they knew it wasn't the best thing, they wouldn't do it. Which means they don't know, which means they think it's the best thing. And I mean, just by definition, that's the way it is. Everyone's always doing the best they can do. Some people's best is abominably awful. Some people's best is, it's hard to believe that they can even be alive, right? That their best is so bad, that their best is, destructive and evil. But there it is. I mean, if they could do better, they would. So, and they may change. People change. Who knows? What they have done doesn't guarantee that they're going to do that same thing again, or that their behavior isn't going to improve. In fact, it can improve with behavior modification. So, often, not always. So since everyone's doing their best, that makes it so there really is no such thing as fault. And I know this brings into question the entire system of jurisprudence, but that's for a different discussion. But there really is no such thing as fault. And I am not saying that, we shouldn't do the things that we're doing, because then I would be shoulding, right? And blaming other people. I'm not saying that people who are dangerous don't need to be removed from the general population. I'm not saying actions don't need to be taken to make people safe. They do. But internally, emotionally, like even if someone's a war criminal, once they're, in a place where they can't hurt anyone, and, sometimes that needs to be done. People need to be put in a place where they can't hurt anyone. But often, usually, when we're talking about blame, we're just talking about blaming people we love and care about and our people in our relationships. But just to make the example clear, I bring up an extreme example. So once the war criminal is safely somewhere where they can't harm anybody, then what? Right? So there's a lot of people who have been damaged by that, right? And it's internal, it's emotional, it's a process we need to go through to heal and to heal the trauma. And that is really the course of action. And if we continue to blame them and say that it's their fault, then we're taking all of the focus of what needs to be done and putting it on to them. So then anything that needs to be done, we want to do to them, which leads to punishment, right? And unfortunately, for better or worse, the punishment only hurts them. It doesn't help us, right? So people will think it's going to, but it doesn't. And we need to go through the process ourselves. So the sooner we can get to that concept and the sooner we can get to the idea that we need to heal and that we want to heal and that our life will be better and that we won't feel so bad when we heal, then we can focus on that healing and realize again, we are the focus. It's our life. So it's your life. It doesn't matter what other people have done. Not that it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying nothing matters and nobody's behavior matters. But once the thing is done, once some action, some event has taken place, now it can't be undone. So the action that needs to be taken is not to attempt to undo the thing, which is really what punishment is. It's an attempt to kind of try and put the onus on the person that seems to have done it. And so that's just spinning your wheels. It's not accomplishing anything, right? So that doesn't help heal you. That doesn't help you at all. So if you have a thing, you're blaming your family member for whatever, not starting a fire in the garage, whatever they did, and continuing to blame them about it, wanting to punish them about it, wanting to limit their behavior and wanting to impose restrictions on them, unreasonable restrictions, then all you're doing is focusing on them instead of focusing on yourself. So we need to focus on ourselves, look at how we've been hurt, look at how we've been damaged by, say, if someone insults us or says something mean to us. We feel bad, right? So it's looking at, why do I feel bad? What do I feel? I feel hurt, but what is that hurt? What's in that? What's inside that hurt? Is that we feel sad? Do we feel angry? And looking at those emotions and then processing and releasing that sadness and that grief and that anger and that fear. When they've said something mean to us, does that make us fear that they'll leave us? So does it make us angry at them because we're frustrated that we couldn't do anything to stop it and now it's already happened and we're not happy with it, right? So looking at those emotions and releasing on all those emotions, processing all those emotions is what's going to heal us and make our lives better and make us happier and make us not, be mean to the other person. Because what will happen, you build up resentment against somebody, you continue to blame them, you'll end up saying mean things to them without knowing it. So not only you're not healing, but you're also losing control of yourself. You start to lose yourself when you don't forgive others, when you blame others for doing things. Because there's emotions underneath there, right? There's emotions that you're feeling around that. And when you spend your time blaming or wanting to punish others or not forgiving them, then you're spending your time focusing on that and you're not focusing on what's going on inside you. And when you don't process those emotions, they go underground. They don't disappear. They don't just evaporate. You just repress or suppress them. And then they come out in weird ways because now they're outside of your awareness. They're emotions, but they're invisible to you. And then you just will say some mean thing without realizing it, which is what happened, with the other person in the first place. Most likely. The other person that was mean to you didn't go through the process last time of, dealing with their emotions, of processing them, and instead they were holding a grudge or blaming someone else. Now they say something mean to you, and then you go through that same process. And if you ignore it and don't process your emotions, then you just do the same thing back to them or to someone else. And then what we end up with is millions and billions of people all being mean to each other spontaneously, not on purpose, not realizing why they did it. And then all blaming each other and getting angry at each other and getting sad. So, not the greatest situation, right? So, if, and one person can be the end of that process, like the buck stops here. At least if it stops with you, it stops, Other people may still be doing it, but when it stops with you, it's not, in a way, you're helping the whole human race. You're helping everyone because you're one place that it's not continuing, but also you're empowering yourself hugely. And now you're going to start to rise to the top, right? You're going to be more powerful, more effective, happier. You're just going to have a better life. You'll be one of the happy people, right? So that process of going through feeling your emotions, allowing yourself to feel them, release them, express them if that's appropriate in an appropriate way, instead of not forgiving, instead of blaming, instead of judging, instead of wanting to punish other people. And I realize that for most of us is our go-to. That's the first. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a simple thing that you can just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you'll never do it anymore. But just the simple awareness that the best thing for you is to forgive everyone and to not blame and judge other people, that the less you can do that, even just cutting down the number of times you're doing that, the better off you're going to be. And in order to do that, you have to have the concept and understand that there is no fault, and understand that there is no benefit to punishment, and understand that there is no benefit to carrying around blame and judgment for other people. And I don't mean there's absolutely no time ever where that could be done. We're talking mostly about normal people, regular people's lives, with your family, with your relationships, with what is usually happening. When we're talking about, I don't know, crazy extreme things, war crimes and things, there are different complications. But certainly for most of us, this is the case, that our lives will be hugely improved every time we can not blame someone. But really, it's just that first initial acceptance and understanding of the reality, this reality that we all live in, the understanding of the reality that really nothing is anybody's fault and nobody's to blame. And they aren't. That's the truth. That's the reality. And I believe there's a Howard Jones song. Yes. No one is to blame. That is right on. So wise man. So just understanding that, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect instantly, but just understanding those things, you'll begin to do it less. And the more you can practice not doing that, and at the same time, you now have the time that you were wasting on that, to be able to wasting on blaming people, to be able to work on yourself and look at your own emotions. And one way to do that is releasing. And I have on my YouTube channel, which you can get to from a link from here, some releases that can help you to release your emotions if you don't know how to do that. But the simplest way to process and release emotions is really just feeling it. That's the basis of release, essentially. So I know when I started doing it, so say I had, I don't know, a bunch of fear or a bunch of sadness or anger. So there's different processes and tools you can use for each of them. I know for sadness, I could just lay on my bed and just feel it. For fear, I could just lay on my bed and feel it. And going through a release process is a little simpler because you do it in chunks. You release a little bit, and then there's a few second break, and you release a little bit, so that you don't. There is like especially with the fear one, with all of them really. If you have a lot of fear, if you just focus and dive into it too much, you can start triggering it so that you feel more and more. So you don't want to do that. So it's best to do one of the techniques to feel it. You take a break, feel it again. So there's a number of recording processes or recordings of that process on my YouTube channel, and one of them specifically for fear. But there's some general ones as well that you can use for any emotion, no matter what it is. And for anger, depending on what level of anger you have, if you have a large level of anger, you might want to do something like, punching a pillow or screaming into a pillow or going out into nature and yelling or doing a lot of physical activity. Sometimes, running or, I don't know, chopping wood or doing something that will exert yourself and use a lot of energy can be really, really helpful with anger. Also for all of them, writing it down, like keeping a journal or just writing it down on paper, can just be magical, can really help you process emotions. So, and the first step is to just write down what emotion you're having. So if you're angry, if you simply write down, I am angry, I am so angry, I am so effing angry, I'm a blah, 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 and just write it all down and like let it all come out. Every swear word, every thing you're thinking, all of it, just spit it all out. Spit it all out. That's processing it. You can do that with fear, right? I am afraid. I'm terrified. I'm petrified. I can't live with this. It's so awful. Da, 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 da. Just keep writing. Just don't put the pen down. Just keep writing and writing and writing until you can't hold the pen anymore. Or you can also do it typing on a computer. I've found that to be not quite as effective. You can do it. It's not nothing. It still will be helpful, but I find it much better to write with your hand. Write in a journal with your hand. It's much more powerful. But if you can't do that, then you can type it. You can type it too. So, and as I said, that will work for all the different emotions. For the anger emotion, you might want to punch some pillows or scream into some pillows or something. You can also write it down and then rip it up and then, burn it safely. In a outside in a cup or something, in a fireplace somewhere that's safe to burn something. You can also, for the sadness one, it's good to write things down if you're having a lot of grief, and then eventually that will make tears come. So crying is pretty great a process because it's this kind of automatic internal tool we have for dealing with sadness and grief. And so if we can write it down and sit in it a while and trigger that to start happening, then the crying itself will be the processing, and that will help process that a lot. But sometimes that will keep going for a long time, depending if it's grief of someone we love dying or something. It can go on for a while. So you might want to use like a grief releasing thing, because it might help you get through faster to do both the crying and that. But some big things, big life-changing events, take time to process. That's human life. There's no super fast way to do it. But it is faster to start working on it now than to not work on it at all and try and ignore it and think you can get away with not doing it, which is sad, funny and sad. that we would think that we can get away with not processing our emotions, because we can't. Not and be healthy and happy, not to thrive in this world. And this is often the cause of when things aren't going your way, is that these emotions are there and they're in your way, and and if you have the drama and the victimhood, that can also really get in your way. So realizing that. And I say this a lot, but just awareness of these things is a huge step. It's so much, going through the whole process is really powerful, and it can take some time, but it's even just a great step just to have awareness of it, awareness of the reality of the situation, awareness of what's going on, awareness of the other person, but mostly awareness of yourself, and mostly awareness of what's inside you. What are your emotions? What are you feeling? That's why there's that trope of, therapists asking you how you feel, but they're trying to get you to pay attention to it, because you're not. So you can do this yourself. Many of us can't. Many of us, need help. Well, really, we all need help at one point or another. Nobody can do everything completely alone. No one can do all this completely alone. But you can certainly do a lot of work yourself. And the huge part of that work is processing those emotions. So that is a really productive, healthy thing to do. And it really can, it pays off great dividends. It pays back 1,000-fold, for every minute you put into processing one of your buried emotions that you're unaware of. You really set yourself free. And that's emotional freedom, which in the end results in physical, financial, all kinds of other freedom. And if you look at it, like the language, whatever it is, the propaganda, the onslaught of things from social media, that onslaught of information keeps you, well, it pours more trauma onto you, and then keeps you distracted from doing these processes. So that would be a good way to get someone not to be free, is to completely distract them from not dealing with their emotions. And if you have the idea that you don't want to pay attention to your feelings because it's woo woo or something, know that you are giving away your freedom and your ability to thrive and be happy. If you want to be free, the first step to freedom is emotional freedom. And for that, you've got to pay attention to them. And that's your job. You can get therapists and people to help you. You can read books. There's all kinds of support and tools out there. But in the end, you just need to feel your own emotions if you want to go through this process, if you want to do that process. If you want to be free, do you want to be a free person? Do you want to be a free, self-empowered human being? That's your choice. You don't have to be. So if you don't want to be powerful, if you don't want to thrive, if you don't want to have good relationships, then ignoring your emotions is the way to get there. That's the way to do that. So it's a choice that we each have to make. On that note, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a review. It really helps our show grow. Thanks for listening to What Nobody Tells You. We'll see you next time.